Winston Churchill is probably best remembered as the Prime Minister who led Britain to victory during World War II. Some of you might even be able to quote a few lines from some of his iconic speeches. If you had known Winston Churchill as a child or a young man, you might not have imagined what his future would be. His early home life was sad and dysfunctional. He barely scraped through at school with bad behaviour and poor results. He failed his exams for Sandhurst Royal Military Academy twice before he gained entry. And yet he became a military leader, a lifelong politician serving twice as Prime Minister. He was also a writer, an artist, a historian, an orator. He made lots of serious mistakes that would have destroyed the confidence or the career of others. So how did he survive? In Boris Johnson's excellent biography of Churchill, he puts it down to one thing: Churchill's massive ego. He absolutely believed in himself. He was always brimming over with self-confidence. That is the polar opposite of another leader at another time in history. This man had no self-confidence at all. He wasn't seeking out position or looking for an opportunity to show the world what he was capable of. And yet, this was the very man that God chose to lead his people out of slavery in the land of Egypt. Moses is his name. When God first told Moses that he had chosen him to lead his people out of Egypt, Moses gave a series of very shocked responses. Who am I that I should do it? Suppose they question me. What if they don't believe me or listen to me and question my experience of you? Oh Lord, I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you've spoken to me. Oh, I'm slow of speech and tongue. Lord, oh please, Lord, choose someone else to do it. If you read through this exchange between God and Moses in Exodus chapters 3 and 4, you will see that poor Moses seems to be getting more and more desperate for God to call someone else to do this job. All Moses could see or think about were his weaknesses, the things that he was sure would disqualify him for the job. Well, years ago, when he thought he could actually do something to help his fellow Hebrews, he'd done something stupid. And then he'd run away from Egypt like a scaredy cat. All these years, he'd just been looking after his father-in-law's flocks. Well, hardly adequate training to lead over 1 million people out of slavery in a powerful empire. And then there would be the questions. He didn't like questions because he didn't know what to say. He wasn't too good at thinking on his feet, and even if he did know the answer, there was that dreaded speech impediment. No, God must have got it wrong. It just couldn't be him. But it was him. He was the perfect candidate. God doesn't make mistakes. As it turns out, Moses was the right man for the job, mainly because he didn't have a massive ego. He wasn't brimming over with self-confidence, but in the end, he was just willing to take God at his word. Just step out in faith that even with his past record of failure and fear, his present struggle with doubts and his speech problems, that God would somehow take him and use him. That's what the Apostle Paul also discovered many years later when he was struggling too. He had to learn and rely on the same truth that Moses relied on. Here's what the Lord said: "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me." Today, are you struggling to see how God could ever use you with your past failures, your present doubts, and your obvious weaknesses? Don't be discouraged, because God isn't looking for those with a massive ego and loads of self-confidence. He's looking for those who will rely on Him.